All right, coming up next is Kristen, Shaheen, and Yuriana Gonzalez. They're going to give a presentation on read aloud, read proud, and why read aloud anyway. So give me a second. I'm going to give you the controls to the castle so you all can get started. And Kristen, there you go. Want to make sure you can access the controls.
All right.
And once I see your screen, I'm gonna drop off.
Okay, can you see it?
Okay, I can see it.
Perfect. Let me move all the things around. All right. So hello, how is everybody? Hopefully we're really good. Oh, I need to make a screen so I can see my chat. Okay, so my name is Kristen Shaheen, and I'm a librarian and my partner in crime here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuriana Gonzalez, and I'm a bilingual reading academic support teacher.
Yes, and we are located in Texas. So I see some of you are like, hey, I know you. Hey, so definitely we're here. We're dealing with the heat. It's hot. All right, but we want to talk to y'all today about read-alouds and why they're really important. I know we already had one earlier with the secondary, which was beautiful. So I like to think that we're going to complement all of the research that was done there and give you some extra stuff.
Yes. So on the left and the right side of every slide, you're going to see some book recommendations. We are also readers, so check the corners of each slides for our favorite book recommendations.
Yes. We figured that was an easy way for us to talk about books without, having y'all take up all the time. Okay.
All right, so our objectives throughout this presentation is that we will be able to understand the why, so the importance of reading aloud to students or students in our homes as well. And then the second point will be suggestions on how to integrate these read alouds.
All right, so this is, I thought, a really good quote. It is very long, so my apologies, but our goal is also for y'all to take any of this information, take it back to your campus, use it for your teachers, use it for your families, your community, whatever the case is. And so this quote right here, go ahead, take it, run with it. We have a need for literacy leaders in schools to address read alouds through professional development. So this has to be done through professional development. Such professional development can help broaden teachers' perspectives on the different ways in which read alouds can foster many different facets of literacy development and serve as the curriculum bridge to build background knowledge, establish disciplinary context, and promote the interest for content learning. So I think that really take everything, run with it. So we've got this chart, and I'll be honest, I zoomed in because I got the little old lady eyes, part of the Glasses Club here. So I zoomed in because I think it's really important for us to see this. By the way, these charts I got from Scholastic. So those of you who like really good, easy to read graphics, perfect. All right. So I zoomed in here. So what this chart, let me move the bar. I have the bar and I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Thank you. So what this chart is saying is basically that the orange line is going to be where parents are saying that read alouds to their children is very, very important. But the blue line is the ones who say we actually do it. So the problem is the families say, yeah, it's important, but they're not following through with it. Now I circled the red, and that's that age range of 8 to 9 years old. Or not 8 to 9, it's 6 to 8, sorry. So it's 6 to 8 years old. And this I really, really want to mention is why is there a big drop off there? So that's something to really think about. And really what we can think of, it's because that's when our readers are becoming more independent with their reading, when they're starting to feel more confident with their reading. So that's a big, big drop off. And it's scary. Just from a mom's perspective, from a librarian perspective, like that to me is scary that we have that sudden shift. So did you want to add to this one?
No, you're hit the point. Yes.
The next one I also zoomed in on because I like this one. This is definitely hits our demographics, and this is nationwide. So I want you to think this is nationwide, but what do the numbers look like where you live and where you are? Because it could very much so be different. In Texas, our makeup is very different, especially in South Texas. So we have a very, very different makeup than maybe you would see in Ohio or in, let's say, Utah, California, wherever. So this I thought was really interesting of how many books are found in the kids' homes. And this is broken up by your demographics. This is nationwide. And it's kind of scary to me to see how low some of those numbers dip. I know I'm very lucky because where I am, and I always get free books and we read lots of books. But I also look at a lot of our kids whenever I hand them a book and I say, no, this is yours to keep. Really? Like they're shocked. That's kind of scary.
And one thing I'd like to add to that is that it just highlights the importance of the work that we do every day as literacy leaders in our communities, and the importance of ensuring that our students are being read to and are provided with books to read and to take home.
For sure. This I think definitely would hit home for all of us librarians, and this is from 2019. I know the families that are complaining about new things, but I still think that, you know, this shows where are kids getting their books. They're getting it from the schools and the public libraries. We're needed. We are needed. If you did not know this and you have a half-price books in your area, you are more than welcome to go up there, ask for donations. They have a form you fill out and you show off your tax ID form. And I got 6 boxes of books over the weekend. So they'll give you boxes of books to give away to kids, for sure. Also, in 2019, parents did show strong support for public and school libraries because they know like this is where reading is going to happen to them. So I do want to remind you that there is faith in what we do, and there is faith in getting books to kids, even though sometimes it doesn't feel that way. All right, so when it comes to read-alouds, I definitely wanted to point this out. So our orange line is going to be basically what the child does, and the blue bar is going to be what the adults do. So the orange bar we have here, the child is choosing the book in this example, which is fantastic. We also have more kids asking questions. We have more adults turning the pages. Who's making the sound effects? The adults are. When I say the adults, I mean the person who's holding the book and reading it. And then who is it that's doing the read-alouds? The read-alouds are the adults. And there's a way we can change that. We can shift it, and you'll see how in just a little bit. They also did a study, Munzer did, where they actually went to pre-readers and they asked, you know, they had, I think it was a group of maybe, I don't remember the number, the sample size, but basically they gave them a tablet and they gave them one of those golden books, the same story on both of them. And they were trying to figure out who or which book did the kid go to more. And the kids gravitated to the actual tangible book over the tablet most of the time. And the reason why they did that, they think, because, you know, we're not mind readers, but they think is because they like being able to hold the book. It's something tangible. Also, turning the pages. That's fun, especially when you're little.
Yes.
Okay.
So we also wanted to address and just how reading aloud to students also supports building empathy and creating a lifelong love for reading. I know when I was a classroom teacher, I just left about a year ago, and this was one of the ways that I loved to integrate reading and the skills that we needed to target in the classroom, but also when I faced any classroom community concerns. Books are always a great avenue to be able to have conversations with kids, with our youngest readers. And so we just wanted to highlight how there's many benefits to reading aloud to kids because it builds empathy, it provides language and listening skills. They're able to learn how to communicate as well by talking about the text they are reading. And of course, we know that it activates and empowers the imagination.
For sure. And this is also one of those lovely Jarrett Lerner images that I'm sure we've seen quite a bit of because they're great. If you're able to print these up poster size, do it. Share them with your teachers. He's got enough that I'm sure every single classroom could have a different poster that he has made. He is fantastic. So why not just show videos? The pandemic, like, yeah, it was tough for all of us, but it did give us some really cool things. I know I really loved being able to access all of these videos from the authors. And I feel like a lot of authors were able to connect with us and they were willing to connect with us more than they were before. So why can't we just show the videos? That's honestly the question I was asked. That's what spurred all of this research for me and Yuri. So let's talk about why we don't want to just show videos of read-alouds. They are cool. Well, let's go back to old school pages.
Yes. So point number one that we selected was reading aloud builds vocabulary. And we know this is nothing new, but one positive factor as literacy leaders is that we can address text structure. As students are reading and analyzing their text, they're able to understand, is it comparing? Is this a problem and solution? Am I able to, how can I respond to the text that I read? We're also able to pause and ask how to pronounce words. And then we know that more affluent children the more that they grow up hearing more words, it'll just lead to more success academically.
So this is an example from my real life. My daughter and I, she's in second grade, going into third grade. I'm sorry, for third grade. And we were reading the Cricket in Times Square. She really wanted to read it. So this one paragraph here, it was split on 2 pages. So sorry, it does not look very pretty, but it was split. And we probably spent 5-10 minutes just talking about it. So I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'll let you read it, but it's because of the word Chester's phrasing. So Chester's a cricket. And that got us to talk about what does that mean, phrasing. And when we talk about all the notes sliding together, and what does it mean to be moved by a section? And when you put your hand over your heart and you say that cricket has a here, what does that mean? So even in chapter books, you are able to stop. You're able to discuss those figurative languages. So I think that's really important to mention. It's not just picture books. It's also in the chapters. There's nothing wrong with, hey, you know what? Let's have a little learn moment, teachable moment right here. Let's talk about this one chapter for 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think it was a really good discussion that we had about just this one paragraph.
And Kristen led us into our second point, which is reading aloud improves comprehension and active listening, because we know nothing substitutes being able to interact with books. Videos are very limited with what we can do. And so we want to keep awareness that at the end of the day, we want to build the comprehension of our readers. So because of this, readers can develop a connection with the authors and as well as the characters. And we know that they're more likely to return to the book later and continue to read it or select other books that are written by that author. It can also influence our secondary readers' comprehension and their attitudes towards learning. And more importantly, we know that reading aloud to students will also support those students or our young readers, our students in general that have learning disabilities to be able to comprehend the text better.
Mm-hmm. And also think about your language learners. Doesn't matter what language you're learning, like it helps them. All right, so so most of my professional career has been in the secondary world. I'm now at elementary level, but I have a big place my heart for those secondary kiddos. So this is from Donald Miller's book. I love her. She's amazing. If you've not picked up The Joy of Reading, get it. It's beautiful. So this is from there. So the most fundamental change in the updated SAT, so they updated SAT recently, is that many, many more words are there. And if you don't read well and happily, this test is not going to be your friend. We've got to be able to get the kids reading fast. They've got to have that fluency. We've got to make it to where they feel comfortable enough in their reading that they can be successful with their SAT, because those skills that we start earlier, look at how they're going to carry into high school. And I know we're preaching to the choir here, but it's very important to remember that having these read-alouds early on will impact them, especially when they're trying to take the SAT, get into college. So this is a screenshot from a book. It's called Indelible Anne. So Anne Richards was one of our governors in the state of Texas. I've got great stories about her, but that's for another day. So I wanted to show this page, because in it talks about how some of the delegates looked down on Anne because she was busy hanging out with with some of the Black delegates. And so they looked down upon her. And I think this is a really important picture in the book, because you have to learn to read the faces of the people in this page. So one of our kindergarten units is about reading faces. And what does a happy face look like? What does a sad face look like? So when you think about, even when you're reading out loud, point out each of those faces. This also, I wouldn't necessarily do this with kindergartners, but pointing the faces out is important there. But think about when you're reading this to maybe our 4th graders who are in Texas history, and you talk about, well, why? Why is that? Like, you have to have that background. And so you're able to ask these students questions of, well, why do you think they're making that ugly face? What does it say on the page? Do the pictures match up? And I think that's really important.
Okay, so we'd also like to talk about how reading aloud strengthens students' fluency, because we know that silent reading is not effective. So what we can do instead of silent reading is we can target through repeated reading, choral reading, echo reading, partner reading, and whisper reading. So repeated reading is when you would read a sentence from the text, and then students repeat it constantly, so that you notice that their fluency will get better as they continue to repeat the sentence. Choral reading is when the adult reader is reading with the youngest reader, or just with whoever they're reading. They're both reading the text together. Echo reading is when the adult reader reads, or one partner reads, and then the second reader follows afterwards. Partner reading, we know it's both reading together whatever text that they have. And then whisper reading is just reading to yourself silently, or in a lower voice, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, kid can't, if they're not fluent, silent reading's not gonna work. Like, let's be honest, as much as we wish it would. Okay, so when it comes to working memory, Yuri just mentioned about the production effect, which is basically where you're producing written words, like reading out loud. It actually helps improve your memory. I mean, I remember in college, and I would sit there and read Moby Dick over and over and over again, and it just wouldn't click. And then I would read it out loud, and it was easier for me to understand. But then they also did a study in Italy with in Perugia. I'm not Italian, forgive the pronunciation. And what happened was the students read to patients with dementia, and they had this happen over 60 times, and that definitely helped the dementia patients better remember things, whether it's day-to-day life, and it actually also activated old memories. So think about how this impacts dementia patients. This can also impact our young readers, and then it could also impact any reader. But the point is it's going to help them with their memory, and especially if you have those pictures in there, that'll help. So paired text.
Okay, so paired text. This is something fun that I always like to do as a classroom teacher. So here you see different versions of Little Red Riding Hood. And then on the next slide, you'll see Cinderella. But one great strategy that you can do is reading different versions of a particular type of text or genre. And then this will help students' comprehension, because they'll have to think about the characters, the setting, so the different story elements, and being able to compare the text, and how is one different from the other? How are they the same? How do the characters change throughout the text? So that we wanted to highlight the importance of also including paired texts.
So just kind of some suggestions. Where do you go with this information? Because it was a lot for us. We're compacting basically an hour-and-a-half presentation into 25 minutes. So the whole book approach, this is something that I just randomly picked up. I learned that the Eric Carle Museum, A, exists, and B, has somebody who basically runs read-alouds there. So this was published in 2015. It's called Reading Picture Books with Children. So it's a little older because of the age, but it's still full of really good stuff. So the idea here with the whole book approach is that you're going to see, hear, and say read. You emphasize questions on the illustrations. It's not just the words. So it's focusing on what's in the picture, what's going on. And they do it from the front cover all the way to the back cover. All right. This is really good stuff. So if you can find this book, totally get it. It's very much so worth it. So this is Megan Dowd-Lambert. She's the author. She says, children are learning to read pictures surely as they are learning to read words. And that's important. They've got to learn how to read both, but sometimes they get the pictures faster. So this is one of the examples that she uses in the book, and I didn't know this, and this might be, I don't know, news to others. So in Brown Bear, she was doing a read aloud with Brown Bear to her group, and they ended up, she was asking the kids, oh, well, why do you think we have these colors printed along the cover and the front and the back? You know, ask lots of questions, let the kids answer. Maybe the kids are noticing things we don't. And one of the kids pointed out, that's the order of the animals in the book. Mind blown. I never knew that. She didn't know that. And I think that's a really cool way. Include the reader or the listeners in your read aloud. Ask them these kinds of questions like, well, why do you think that this person has an angry face? Why do you think that it's important that they're skateboarding? Whatever the case is. But I thought that was like a whoa kind of moment. for me and obviously her. This is another one with Ezra Jack Keats, Snowy Day, love it, classic again. She mentioned this page as showing motion and how it, to maybe a young reader, it looks like we have two of the same character playing on the same hill. But obviously we don't. We have motion. And you would see right down the middle is where the crease would be, the gutter of the book. And that's going to be, where we would think, oh, that makes sense. But for the kids, it doesn't. So this is a really good place to ask them questions like, oh, well, why do you think there's two people on the hill? Why? What are they doing? Do they look like they're having fun? So these are the kinds of questions you can ask with that, that whole book approach. And wordless books are really cool. I'm really liking wordless books. And if you're not familiar with them, I feel like we all are in here. These are books that just rely on the art to tell the story. There really might not be any words in there other than what, the title. It forces your readers to read the artwork to tell a story. And this is great to teach sequencing and inference. I think about our kids who are learning to read. I think about whether that's their emergent readers, their English language learners, or in the case where Yudi and I work, we have Spanish, like we have dual language programs. So you could have these in a classroom and they would be very successful with the kids because they feel more confident to read the picture books.
Okay, so how to use in class. So Kristen talked about wordless books. One of the ideas that you can also do is showcase just one of the pictures and then have students write. What do they see? What do they think? What do they wonder is happening in the book? And then go through it together and see if, what you all were thinking in regards to the text. But of course, we know that we can also read the book multiple times. We can read aloud without the discussion and being intentional with those notice and note opportunities. So what ideas do we want to highlight in the text that we know could be beneficial to our readers? And using the whole book approach that Kristen talked about earlier. But we do have some classroom teachers, these are just some station ideas that you can use. So for your youngest, like your pre-K kindergarten students, maybe even first grade students, finding the letters on the cover that are also in their name. That will be a positive way for them to, hey, my letter is in this book, or I see this letter and it's in my name. Reading the wordless book to a partner. So again, having those conversations about what they feel is happening in the text and why do you think that's happening in the book. Poetry, this is one good station that I had in my classroom and my students loved it. So I had poems written on anchor chart paper. And this was one way that my students were practicing fluency, but also targeting mental images, because we know that's very important, especially when they get to reading those chapter books and it's all imagination. What do you think is happening? When I read this part of the text, what comes to mind? So poetry is definitely one way to address those areas in reading. And of course, photos from magazines that you can use to target the skill of inference, which we know is an area of difficulty and can be challenging for a lot of our kiddos.
And we know this, let your kids choose the book they want to read. If they want to read the same book over and over and over again, they feel comfortable with that book. They are able to make predictions with what's going to happen because they already know the layout. Donald Miller, she's amazing. She gave this example to us of the I Survived books. They have the same text structure. The kids keep reading them because they're able to predict and they feel comfortable with it. Also, I want to put this encourage reading to pets. So this is my daughter, I mentioned her earlier. I have another child, not just her. So I have to give him some mention. Encourage reading to pets. I know that it was mentioned in the last one about having that. Automatically, you have a built-in motivator because you get to read to an animal. Petting animals is very relaxing. And also being in the presence of animals tends to boost our memory recall and it teaches fluency. What I mean by that is if you have like a dog, let's say that, I mean, if you want to pet a lizard, cool. But ideally a dog, they're soft or a stuffed animal. And you get to a comma, you get to period, tell your reader, hey, go ahead, pause right here, pet the cat, pet the dog, pet the stuffy, whatever you have. That way they are having to be forced into learning how to use your fluency when it comes to commas and periods. Also remember this, pets are going to judge and they like the attention. So this is a picture of my daughter. She is reading Lupe Lopez by E.E. Trujillo or Charlton Trujillo. To our lizard, I mentioned this is Lizard Burton, the reading reptile. So definitely it's a really cool thing. Even if it's stuffed animals, get kids reading to pets. Because it's cute. And this is my daughter's reading Spanish here. We're not a Spanish speaking household, but because of that, we've got that going on in my house. So thank you for coming. Go on, get some great books. Read if you have any questions. I see there's some stuff going on in the chats. All right, let's see. Trying to make it big so I can see what's going on in the chat. Okay, read aloud, engage the students in story by reading the words and pictures can take 20 minutes or more. This is time for book checkout. If you get grades in your library program. I don't. My library program is not one that does grades. In fact, the way I have 30 minutes each time with the class. So I break it down of 10 minutes for story time, 10 minutes for activity, 10 minutes for checkout. So that way, if something shifts, let's say a class is running late, I still make sure I hit story time and I hit checkout. We can move the activity away elsewhere, but those are the two things I have to hit: for sure story time, for sure checkout. So I don't assign grades in that, but you can always, push this to your teachers to remind them of that. Yeah, anything else?
I have two questions for you.
Yes,
It was a
let's do it.
comment and a question. Years ago, and I'm
Mhm.
aging myself, when I was working for Chicago Public Schools, Build-A-Bear was a store came to Navy Pier. I used to take my students down there and my third and fourth graders, and their reading scores went up because they were engaged in leisure reading and they were reading to the bear. Parents thought it was the strangest thing under the sun, but they started to see how it benefited them in the end because they were just independent reading, and that fluency just went through the roof. That fluency and comprehension went through the roof. The second thing is, do you and Yuriana work together?
We do actually.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
There
at
is
this
no
campus.
excuse for your school not being successful.
And we know it.
Everything
That's
that
our
you are
goal.
saying, you guys are in sync with one another. And oftentimes literacy specialists and librarians are not on the same page. And we find when you get to the real root of it is that there's a lack of respect. And I can see it through your presentation. So I pray that you all continue to stay together and do right by the kids at your school.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Casey. Yeah, Judy and I actually her office is right across from the library, so we always get to see each other. In fact, I just saw it right now through my window. I'm on campus today because the internet's better here, but we definitely work together. And since my personal children are dual language and Judy has that dual language background, that definitely was an easy bond for the two of us to get to know each other and for me to pick her brain on stuff as a parent. And we both have common goals, which is books in kids' hands, get them reading. Do I care what they're reading? No. Does she care what they're reading? No. We just want to make sure that they're reading something. So I think that helped us build those bonds. And also I think it lets others on campus see, like, we partner real well together and we'll partner with others. And I think once you find that person on your campus that you can partner with, showcase it, let others see it. Like Judy and I, this is our second time, and we're presenting again once next week. So we're going to keep talking about read-alouds to anyone.
Keep talking.
Yes.
And be the example for other librarians and literacy specialists across the country that you need to form those relationships in the schoolhouse. Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Please give Yuriana and Kristen some love in the chat. Okay, and make sure you go over to social media, give them some love using the hashtag #BossLibrarianPD. All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Take care now. That was really good. I enjoyed that.